Hey guys, so today I'm comparing two great lenses from Sony. This is the 18-135 versus the 18-105 comparison. So first, let's start by taking a closer look at both of these lenses. So here they are side by side. You can see that there is about an inch difference in overall length. 18-105 has a toggle switch for the power zoom. And that's really a differentiating factor between these two. So the 18-105 doesn't extend when you zoom in or out. So it's great for gimbal work, whereas the new 18-135 does extend if you are zooming in. Both of them have optical steady shot built in. One is a constant f4, the other is a variable 3.5 to 5.6 aperture. Minimum focusing distances are 0.45, 1.48 feet, so the exact same. Filter threads are 55 and 72. Here is the 18-105 on my A6000, quite large. Here is the 18-135, a little bit smaller and a little bit more manageable. And here is the weigh-in. This is 318 grams, 422 grams, 648 grams versus 752. So now let's go ahead and take a look at some side-by-side shots from both of these lenses. So this is the first shot. The 18-135 I'm keeping on the left, and the 18-105 is going to be on the right. So these next set of images, what I did is I just shot the camera aperture priority with both lenses using a tripod, 2-second timer, delay on the shutter. But this is what you get straight out of the camera, straight out of the lens. JPEGs in this case. So I wanted to compare these side by side just to see what the casual user would get. So at 18 millimeters, let's take a look at the subject. 135 looks a lot better here. Definitely looks like it's sharper and more properly focused. Some more detail. You can see in the bench here as well. 18-105 is a bit soft. 135 is noticeably sharper. Let's see if the corners are the same. And yes, I have to say that the corners look better here as well. Now obviously I'm not focusing on these corners because this is more of a wide open shot, but surprising, the 18-105 doesn't look super sharp throughout the frame in this example here at 18 millimeters. Moving in a little bit closer here at 50 millimeters, again, f5 with the 18-135, f4 with the 105. This is what you get. I still have to say that the 135 looks a bit better. Looks a little sharper. There's more detail in the hair. As far as the background, there's the difference between f5 and f4. So f4 is a little bit creamier, but not a whole lot. Interesting. So let's zoom in some more. This shot is done at 100 millimeters, so you're at f5.6 on the new lens, f4 still with the 18-105. Okay, and now things are changing. So 135 is definitely softer. 18-105 still looks really good. Look at the hair details, same thing. This is soft, this is better. And if you look at bokeh, you can see it's creamier here, it looks nicer. Even though the 18-135 is at f5.6, so you'd expect it to be sharper, it isn't. So pretty interesting. ISO settings are a bit different, as you can see, but that's what you get straight out of the camera. Now, if you take a picture using the same exact settings, 70 millimeters, 1/60, f5.6, ISO 125 on both lenses, let's see if one of them looks better than the other. So very close. I have to say that if I had to choose, it looks like the 18-105 is a bit sharper, and yes, there's more detail in the hair. So very close from a distance. If you're not zooming in, you'd be hard pressed to tell which one is better, but if you are looking very closely, the 18-105 looks a bit sharper here. So let's take a look at some landscape shots. So these next set of photos were taken at f8. So this is just overlooking the river, and you can see downtown Austin in the distance. I'm going to zoom in to this building here and see what we get. 135 looks a little sharper to me. Again, this is at 18 millimeters. Still looks a little better here. The corners, neither lens is really good in the corners. Let me move over to this other side. Similar. And in the very corner, looks like the 18-105 is a little sharper, more detail here. So pretty interesting. Water detail definitely is better with the 18-135. These shots are done at 35 millimeters. Let's see if anything changes. Not as sharp as 18, but it's still a little better than the 18-105. I think in the corners though, the 18-105 looks a bit better to me. Interesting. So let's take a look at this side. There's more detail here. Definitely sharper, much sharper in the corners. So an interesting result, if you look at these side by side, it looks like the center is better on the 135, but the corners are slightly better on the 105. So moving in even closer, this shot is at 99 millimeters on both lenses. 135 is a bit sharper. Let's see if the corners are the same. Nope, 105 is sharper in the corners, and you can notice how much more detail you're seeing here in comparison to this softness. So very, very interesting result there. Let's take a look at this side. Here's a difference that is easy to see. Again, 18-135 in the corners isn't as good as the 18-105. In the center, it looks a little bit sharper to me, not by a whole lot, but in the corners, it is definitely struggling at f8. So the next shot is of the 360 bridge. These were done at f10, so stop down a little bit more, and let's see if we move into the center, if there's much of a difference here. Both look pretty good. 18-135 looks a little better. Again, this is at 18 millimeters, so at the widest setting. Not a huge difference. Neither lens is really excelling here. There's more distortion here. The building is straight on the 18-105, so kind of a similar result. I have to say that in the corners, the 18-105 does better. You can see it here. Both have some color fringing, chromatic aberration up in the branches. Surprised that this is not as well controlled as the 18-105 chromatic aberration, but neither one of these is amazing. I'd say the same verdict holds. Center sharpness is better at 18 millimeters, but the corners are not very good. We saw the correction that the 18-135 has to apply at 18 millimeters because of the vignetting, so I'm not surprised to see that the edges and corners are not very sharp. Let's take a look at this shot. This is done at 50 millimeters. Lighting's a little bit different because the sun was out for this shot and then it got covered up by a cloud in the second shot, but settings are the same. 18-105 looks better in the corners yet again. It's picking up a little bit more detail, I think, even though it has more poor lighting. But as you move into the center, the 135 lens does a decent job. Not a huge difference here, though. Honestly, it's very slight. Again, a little bit sharper in the corner in comparison to the 18-135. Here is 100 millimeters. And not much of a difference here. Let's see. Here's some text. Honestly, the 18-105 looks a bit clearer. This looks a bit soft. So there's a certain point where I feel like the 18-135 just isn't as good, whereas the 18-105 seems to be pretty consistent throughout the range. A little bit more fringing here. Interesting. So that is it for the side-by-side comparison. Now, what's interesting about those results is that it's very difficult to make a decision as to which one of these two is best. Both of them are about equal, honestly. One excels in some areas, and in other areas, the other excels. Now, for video, I want to mention this really briefly. The 18-105 is the lens to get if you are shooting video. Let me show you what I mean by that. So in this test, what I did is I set the camera to manual mode, didn't change the aperture or the ISO settings or the shutter speed. And this is what happens when you zoom in with the 18-135. You'll notice that it's going from a bright image down to a much darker image because of that variable aperture. With the 18-105, you get none of that. So your image is equally as bright all the way in. Now, obviously, you would probably never shoot video in manual settings like this, but it does demonstrate the benefit of having a constant aperture lens because your camera doesn't have to adjust shutter speed or ISO settings when you're going from 18-105. So just something to be aware of. For video, the 18-105 is the one to get. Now for photos, it's a little bit more difficult to make a decision. The 18-135 is impressive for what it is. It's a small lens. It's decently sharp in the center. In the corners, it struggles a bit. But the 18-105 isn't a ton better. It's not really better in the center. In the corners, it is a bit better. So it's a tough decision. Ultimately, you have to ask yourself three things. Number one, are you going to be using the lens for video work the majority of the time? If the answer is yes, just get the 18-105. This is the better lens for video. The second question to ask yourself is if you are planning on using this lens for videos and photos, maybe 50-50, then are you okay with the extra weight and size of the 18-105? If yes, then just get this one. If no, and you want something a little bit more pocketable and easier to carry around with you, the 18-135 is great. And as a kit lens replacement, this thing really does well. You really can't complain much about the image quality. And the last thing you want to ask yourself is which one fits in your budget. The 18-105 is a little bit cheaper by $50 to $100 than the 18-135, but I imagine that the prices on this thing will start to go down and they should be about equal sometime in the near future. So that is it for my comparison between these two lenses. Both are great replacements for the kit lens if you have an A6000, A6300, or A6500. So check them out if you are interested. That is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something. Let me know what you think about the performance from both of these lenses. What do you think? Were you surprised? Did you expect one to do better than the other? Very curious as to what your guys' thoughts are, because I was certainly surprised by this test. I was expecting a very different result. But anyway, that is going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all the likes, comments, and support, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.